Like any industry or any media, it will only improve as technology gets better. Video games are no exception to this rule. We've reached the point now where major game companies are dabbling in 3D games in the hopes of attaining eye-popping visuals and stunning gameplay. With this budding idea, more game developers are trying to latch on. But with anything new, there's always bumps in the road. 3D gaming is currently seeing its share of criticism, but what do you think can be done to make this next step more acceptable to the masses? Find out our thoughts right here on Downloadable Content. Welcome, friends, Romans, countrymen, to Downloadable Content. I am Brian, and joined with me on this particular episode, we have Peter.
Hi.
Nick.
Hello.
Ron.
Hello.
And Ronnie.
Salutations.
More death will occur as a result of the paradox. So, here we are all again, all assembled. And we are going to talk about another incoming trend into the gaming industry, the notion of 3D gaming. 3D in the sense of having the appearance of the images on your screen jumping out at you. As we had more, trying to simulate, a virtual reality sort of experience thing, possibly, sort of, kind of. And I think it largely began with movies. I seem to remember movie theaters being really the first to try to spearhead the next jump in viewing technology.
They definitely did. I mean, 3D, I remember 3D movies as far back as I can remember them trying to get people to do it, but the multicolored glasses back then didn't go over well.
Besides make you look like a tool, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the nice red and blue glasses, which are always fun, flimsy.
The new glasses for the 3D movies at this point, at least, don't really affect your view. Like to go into what I was just talking about before we started the podcast, for our listeners out there, I can't see 3D images, so I'm kind of the baseline for this to give the opinion of towards 3D gaming for people who can't experience it. But at least the current version of the glasses don't affect you viewing the movie. The old ones, they really discolored the movie if you couldn't see the 3D properly.
It was either in red, in blue, or in purple.
Exactly.
And with the new ones, they look more like sunglasses more than anything else.
And they only...
Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
At least they cover the whole, your whole eye. So if you're wearing glasses, you'll at least cover that part.
And all they do is make the movie look a little bit darker than it would otherwise. Other than that, there's no real viewing difference.
Except an increase of the ticket price by about $5.
Yeah.
Makes me kind of glad that we don't have 3D movie theaters around here.
Binghamton has none?
We don't have a 3D movie theater.
Wow.
We don't have it.
But Binghamton's not a small place.
Yeah, Binghamton's like a pretty big city.
No!
Well, to my rural neck of the woods, it is.
Albany's got... Binghamton and Albany are probably, relatively the same size, and Albany's got a movie theater.
I mean, we have movie theaters, but the problem is, Binghamton doesn't have money.
Oh, there's that.
Well, be that as it may, as I said, 3D technology, really began with movies and Naturally, it wouldn't take long for the gaming industry to want to look at it and go, I wonder if we could do that.
Well, the first one was, what was the year? Hang on, Stats is on it.
Alright. Oh, you look up that.
Well, it's kind of funny because 3D movies in movie theaters have been around for so long, but they've tried to push it into people's households before, and people are so resistant to it because of how expensive it is. And it only seems with the rise of 3D video games now that the video games are getting them getting the technology in people's households faster than the movies have been.
There's also a price point there too. It used to be that to have a 3D TV, I think it was costing you somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000. Now a 3D TV could cost you as little as $5,000. So
as little
only
as $5,000.
as little as 5,000. Yes.
yeah, I know it sounds stupid saying that you're gonna have a used car essentially sitting in your living room, but it's just an option now that is a lot more quote unquote affordable for the
Rich.
more the middle class people to try and get.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we on an earlier podcast say that Sony? Oh, this was the E3 one, didn't they? Weren't they selling a TV that was 3D capable for only $500?
Yeah, we definitely are going to discuss that.
But who can remember the first 3D gaming system, the Virtual Boy?
I
Who
remember that
wants
thing.
to remember?
I got one sitting right here in my room.
I think I almost sitting in my closet, which is where it should be for the rest of its days.
Oh, come on.
That's
it wasn't that bad for the
Virtu-
first 15 minutes.
It's nothing but red and black lines, and
It
you get a
gave me
headache within the
migraines.
first 5 minutes of seeing the damn thing.
Who remembers Sega's holographic arcade game?
Which was?
I think no one.
Man.
Oh god, that thing was in
I
like what
never
1993 and was in all
So-
3 arcades in the entire U.S.
What was the game? I never heard of it.
Actually, I can't remember the name of it, but I do remember you were played as a cowboy and you went on these time travel trips to face various obstacles.
Oh! I know the game you're talking about. They ported a non-3D version of it to the Sega Saturn. God, what the heck was it called?
Wait,
Time Warp?
What did it have?
Time Crisis.
No,
Oh,
not Time
God,
Crisis.
No.
Oh,
Describe that again, if you would.
You played as a cowboy who was going through time travel to various different levels, and each level had a challenge not too dissimilar to something like Dragon's Lair or Space Ace, only it was a different theme of the Wild West free speech sci-fi.
it's called Time Traveler.
Yep, Time Traveler.
There we go.
And it was 1991, actually.
91
Okay.
in the arcade, yes. For, in 2001, a non-3D version was put out. That particular game, again, had a very special type of arcade cabinet. And it used CD-ROM discs. I for some reason I thought Laserdisc was used there, but or was it? I don't know. I think the arcade console might have used a Laserdisc, but in any event, but by our stumbling around trying to remember it, you could see how popular that was.
Well, it was a big raid shooting in my local arcade where I was for about 6 months, and then everyone forgot about it.
Sounds like most things in an arcade.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not uncommon for major entertainment companies to push new formats. I mean, just think of our movie technology. We've had Betamax, VHS, Laserdisc, VHS cassettes. Now we're on, DVDs and Blu-ray.
The idea behind 3D TVs being so expensive and people resisting changing it actually kind of reminds me of when the flat screen LCD TVs first came out, and a bunch of people thought they'd never, they're too expensive. This will never catch on.
Right,
And-
because we love our giant, cathode ray TVs, and
But then as prices dropped and demand picked up, everybody has them now.
Also, the benefit that the LCD picking up too was that originally when the LCD came out, it wasn't bigger than like a 20 or 24 inch screen. Now you can get like 60 inch LCD TVs, and people are like, "Oh, this is great, fantastic! I don't need to have this thing that's 10 feet deep to have this nice big picture."
And and also originally when flat screen TVs came out, picture quality was improved over standard TVs, but not all that improved. Now there's a pretty noticeable difference. As resolution gets better and things like that. But yes, that's a very good analogy, and perhaps 3D games will eventually get to that point. However, I think it might take a bit longer, because take a look at us. We prefer our boring inferior 2D games.
Well, they're going to have to do something that makes you want to. It's like when a new video game system comes out, and if there is a single release game that is amazing, that makes you want, I'm going to go out and pick up the system, you're going to go and do that. If it's We Play that's coming out with the system as the release game, you're probably not going to.
Well, I mean, yeah, and that holds true because, if take Resident Evil, for example. Resident Evil Revelations is coming out only for the 3DS, and that might force me to get the system. Same sort of thing. But, as with anything else, there is some definite criticism over the 3D gaming. I got to experience a little bit of that when I went to PAX a few months ago in Boston. And there was a couple of booths set up with these giant TVs and these glasses, and the first problem I immediately encountered was I'm putting 3D glasses on over glasses.
Isn't that kind of annoying?
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I will say, at least the 3DS doesn't require glasses to be able to use it correctly.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That definitely will merit some conversation as we go forward. But no, the first thing I noticed was that putting 3 glasses on over regular glasses, and it meant that I probably didn't get the correct desired effect because of how optics work. That's your big problem. Many gamers I know wear glasses for obvious reasons. Because we spent all that time sitting too close to the TV playing Mario as a kid. And,
or we could just play lousy genetics.
Tubes.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, genetics, yeah, whatever. But yes, that was the first thing I noticed. And secondly, and this is still the case, I thought you were saying
that we wore glasses because they're sexy.
Well, that too, but
that's besides the point.
Sexy has no merit on a 3D discussion.
Unless the 3D is sexy in itself.
Yes.
Which, we haven't gone to 3D porn yet, have we?
No, but
no.
You know what? I don't want to know.
But you know what? If anybody's going to pioneer 3D technology successfully, it will be the porn industry.
Okay, the seriousness in that tone just scared the fuck out of me.
Go on Cracked sometime and take a look at the articles on, just how much porn has contributed to our media viewing.
That's why the VCR took off. That's why, to a certain point, DVDs took off. That's why, to a certain point, Blu-ray eventually took off.
So the moral of the story for all you listeners out there is porn is pervasive. The end. Back to the subject at hand. Not only was the feeling of 3D glasses very, very uncomfortable while wearing them over regular glasses, it's also prohibitively expensive. By and large, not only do you need a TV that is capable of 3D,
the glasses are way too much.
You need to not only shell out a few grand for a good quality, 3D TV. You then need to spend money on glasses, because usually they'll only come with one pair, and obviously you can't just have one pair. So you get nailed there. And then, of course, if you haven't purchased the game console, if you haven't purchased a PS3 or 360, and Nintendo is still wondering what 3D is, but
why are they still wondering? They beat everyone to the punch.
They did on the handheld market.
The Wii and their new system is going to be supporting 3D natively.
Yes, they will. But we haven't gotten there yet.
Correct.
We haven't gotten there yet. That'll be the next plunge. And of course, you still have to buy the system, so it ends up being very, very expensive. I don't know too many gamers who can drop $2,000 or $3,000 in one shot.
Yeah, for us, we span that over 3 months.
We spent that
$2,000 to $3,000 in 3 months.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
about gamers buying games.
When it can be pretty difficult to even purchase a $60 video game.
Buying a game console, we usually buy a game console once every 3 to 4 years because they're only a few $100s.
So it can get pretty expensive, and that just will turn a lot of people off. I mean, yes, if 3D works correctly, great, but unless we can bring the price down somewhat, I don't see too many people leaping at the opportunity.
It almost seems to me like this battle of 3D versus non-3D is kind of like the battle between HD DVD and Blu-ray a few years ago.
Right.
Where it was kind of, hot, it was kind of it was 50-50 on the issue. And then one major supporter, in this case Disney, sided with Blu-ray and said, we're going to make all of our stuff Blu-ray, and it just kind of swamped out the industry just from Disney's, money and influence alone. And I feel that this whole 3D thing is going to be in the same manner just because it's really only going to take one major thing for 3D TV to just swamp the whole industry.
I could see that. I could definitely understand that. I mean, what you're saying basically is, for 3D to really catch on, you need the support of at least one major heavyweight to put all of its cards behind it.
And in this case, I would say Sony is probably going to be that contributor.
Well, Sony is definitely pushing its hopes on 3D, but I also wouldn't count out Nintendo, with their 3DS making a console that is all 3D, which is more than Sony's doing at this point.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, I'd say the big contributor right now is, 3DS. If the 3DS takes off, it's cheap. It's not the cheapest thing ever, but I mean, it's the same as any other Game Boy system when it comes out, or at least the DS was. And
well, maybe a little more expensive, but go on.
Well, let's put it this way: as of right now, at Walmart, it is on sale for the exact same price as when the DS came out. Trust me, I just got it. It's high. It has a higher retail price, but you will be able to find that 3DS on sale, and in different places if you look for the exact same price as the DS. When the DS came out, but the 3DS, I mean, it's getting it in front of people at a decent price, and is putting 3D into their minds. And once they get hooked on the 3DS, assuming the 3DS takes off, they're going to be looking for it in their living rooms too.
Well, and I think one advantage the 3DS has that Sony doesn't have is that it's 3D right in there, no glasses required. And I think that will, the 3DS will be the prevailing system of choice until TV makers figure out how to make 3D TVs in the same technology that the 3DS does.
They can't do it in that technology. They're going to have to find another one.
Yeah.
That technology...
The reason why the 3DS works is because it's such a small screen. You can't really do that same technology on a bigger screen because...
It costs way too much money, and it has an incredibly narrow viewing angle to be able to see the 3D. For a TV, there's no way to be able to do that properly. It costs you way, way too much, prohibitively expensive, and you still wouldn't even be able to get the experience correctly.
I mean, yeah, again, I mean, and it's the same thing for any new technology. It's prohibitively, here we go, expensive when it launches, but eventually it'll come down as more and more people accept it. That's just the way of it. But as you just mentioned, the 3DS works because it's on a small scale. Try doing that with, a 48 or a 60-inch giant TV, or even a regular, 24 or 30-inch TV. It's you don't want to have to position yourself in an odd angle.
Well, the TV makers have been toying with this technology for over 10 years now before Nintendo did it, and they just haven't been able to. It doesn't work as a regular TV. They're where the technology came from.
Yes, so in order for it to work on a large scale, they're probably going to have to reinvent some whole new manner of viewing technology in order to be able to pull it off.
They're going to have to. This is a dead end for them, but it works out really well for the 3DS. But they're going to have to find a new technology, a new way of doing this if they're going to do it on the big scale.
Which I wonder is the PlayStation Vita jumping onto the 3D bandwagon?
They're on the 3D bandwagon. I think they're using the same technology that the 3DS is using. I think.
There's a patent problem in the making.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh well, we all know Sony. Nintendo usually starts or pioneers some technology. Sony and Microsoft take it, steal it, tweak it, and modify it just enough to be able to call it their own without getting their asses sued out of existence. That's how it works. It happened with the Wiimote. The PlayStation. Sony made a PlayStation snow cone controller, and
I thought it looked like a microphone, but all right.
It's the PlayStation snow cone, and
usually isn't the stuff that comes afterwards supposed to refine it? Because they make copies off of the Nintendo stuff, but I still prefer the Nintendo stuff.
I've never actually had any experience with the PlayStation Move, but it's how it works. So if the Vita is jumping onto the bandwagon, we'll see how that results. I mean, I know Sony is trying to spearhead this next jump in the industry, not only with just video games, but movies and viewing in general. As we just briefly mentioned some minutes ago, Sony is making 24-inch television monitors that are capable of 3D, and they still require glasses though. And I forget what games they are toying with for.
Wasn't it No, it wasn't Killzone. Oh, what the hell was it?
It was Killzone.
Oh. Lucky guess.
Whatever you mean.
What?
There's Killzone 3 that has the 3D support.
Yeah, it's called Killzone 3D.
One other thing I'll say that they haven't actually put out yet, but I've seen them toying with is we can't use the 3DS technology for full TVs. But you want to know one other place that we have a very narrow viewing angle and we're all staring at it right now? Your computer monitor. You're generally close enough to it with a very narrow viewing angle, and it's small enough, generally compared to 45-inch TVs, that the 3DS technology could be used there, and I know that they've already made some test models. So we might see some 3D games on computers without the glasses before we see them in our homes.
My computer monitor is 23 inches widescreen 1080p. I don't. Is the technology really ready for a screen that size?
It may not.
I know that I've seen
There's a huge difference between my computer monitor and a 3DS and the screen size.
I know I've seen some commercials lately.
I've seen a 19 and a 21-inch that are their test models that work that
All right,
scale.
well they're getting close then.
And especially with TV now making the transitions to internet TV, it might work.
I mean, it's mainly the viewing angle that's the problem. That's the reason they're not moving it to the TVs, because if it was just the expense, well, somebody will end up paying $40,000. There's somebody that crazy. But without
somebody with a lot of money too.
Yeah, with the viewing angle problem though, that's the major problem. If you can't see the 3D unless you're sitting in a 1-foot space, in front of your television, it's not going to work. But with a computer monitor, your viewing angle is pretty much set.
Well, not on mine. My monitor is close enough. I actually have to move around a little bit in order to get the whole scene.
But you can see why it would be better with a monitor than a TV for viewing angle.
I could see it.
Not really.
Okay.
Well, I mean that is the problem, isn't it? It's trying to make it work on the larger scale, and I think it's still going to be a considerable amount of time before we actually get there. I mean, that's just the way technology works. Dying. And I just had a thought, but then it went away.
It went away.
Chase after it and go get it back.
I have to go get it. It'll come back to me. But
So you wait for it to return instead of going after it?
oh, I don't want to run around the apartment looking for a thought.
We'll be right back after these.
Yeah, cut to commercial and have a thought running around. And also, another problem that we also touched on, which we've been incorporating in and out of the discussion here, is the use of glasses themselves. We don't like having, I mean, especially if you wear glasses. That's just frustrating, annoying, uncomfortable. So,
And for those of us who wear glasses, we know how irritating wearing our normal glasses is. Why would anybody who doesn't wear glasses want to?
Well, I guess it's a boon for the eye contact industry.
Unless
Or the LASIK.
or unless people who do wear glasses, I wonder if the companies who make prescription glasses, I wonder if they could make prescription 3D glasses.
Oh God, no.
They have.
They have.
Yes, they have. They're in Japan. They don't sell them in America because we don't care about 3D enough yet.
Figures Japan would. Japan always
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Well, Japan is much more
Edge.
and crazy.
In tune, I should say. Japan's a lot more, I would say, in tune or up to date with the latest technological trends compared to the U.S.
Yeah, they're much more eager to try and make new technology. They don't really. They are more embracing of change and new technology than we are here in the States. They
do invest a lot more money into technology research than the United States does.
And people in Japan are willing to shell out mega bucks for new technology. We don't like to part with our money.
No, we part with our money. We just part it in the wrong places.
Yeah, right.
Drugs, sex, rock and roll, cars, women, sometimes all of the above at once.
Or we have to pour way too much into our homes, whereas Japan, I don't know how the economy is there, but
real estate in Japan is like mega expensive. They have almost none of it.
Yeah, their economy got nailed just when the same time as ours did, and one of the major things about Japan is how they have so little space to build that their houses are like half the size of ours.
If they're lucky. Keep in mind too that Japan doesn't really have a lot of natural resources anymore, so that they have to import a lot of their stuff.
That's why they get into the electronics industries and industries where it's your brain power rather than your natural resources, and making new technologies to make money, because they don't have a lot of the natural resources that we can use. I
just didn't know how much they put into they invest in their houses because it's so small. Because at least in the area I live in, you can easily put down $125,000 on a okay home.
I imagine it's a lot more expensive than that in Japan, just for the sheer because they have no room. Therefore, there's not a lot of real estate. The demand is super high.
Space
so that
is
would
a premium.
Yeah, so the prices would be wicked high as well. 125,000 would probably be a steal for something over there.
Yeah.
That's why you see a lot of buildings in like Tokyo and Kyoto. Like a lot of them are a lot of skyscrapers because they can build up instead of building out.
Exactly. Back to the 3D discussion. I actually want to say my main criticism for 3D.
Go ahead. We can do that before we cut to break.
Okay. And believe it or not, it really doesn't have much to do with my inability to see it, though it has a little bit to do with that. I see 3D in video games going one of two directions. Either it literally is just eye candy, and it's just a way to make the games look a little bit better and a little bit more eye-popping, but has no actual use in the game, so it wouldn't matter whether it's 3D or 2D, which that wouldn't matter to me because I can't see it. Or two, they actually incorporate it as use in the gameplay. Make important images in the game 3D and backgrounds and stuff not, which is what they do with a lot of them, so that you can tell what's important and what's not. Such as, just a completely random example that's not in a game yet, say if in the original Resident Evils, where instead of shiny objects, certain objects were 3D and certain objects were 2D, depending on whether you could interact with them or not. But if they try to use the technology that way, it fucks anyone that has problems seeing 3D images, and I'm not the only one out there. There's a lot of people.
Yeah, I saw a statistic earlier, this would have been a couple months back, where I think the national average people who just straight up can't see 3D is somewhere in between like 5 and 10%.
Yeah.
So you're talking about basically 20 to 30 million Americans who can't see 3D, just straight up can't see it. So that's a big chunk of your market right there.
And not only that, and that's a very good point you bring up, Ronnie, is, we've been talking about 3D. I mean, all we've been doing is talking graphical updates. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you incorporate 3D as a function of gameplay and story, as opposed to, ooh, shiny, that things could get very interesting.
But the problem with that, like I said, I mean, that would be what in any technology, that's what I would say, that's what you need to do. You need to incorporate it as, it's like with the Wiimote. You can point and waggle it at things, but if they didn't have games that you had to do that for, good games where it's useful, it would never have caught on. But they did. You have to incorporate the new technology into the game for it to be successful, but then you're going to make games where there's a good 10% of the people who play the games that are not going to be able to play your game.
And therein lies the problem.
Yep.
So, that's that on that. That's a very, very interesting point. That's a very interesting point. Thank you.
No problem.
On that note, we are going to cut to break on our second half. We're going to discuss some of the major players so far in video games, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, etc., and what they would like to do to try to bring 3D, try to expand their market on it. We're also going to talk a bit more about the 3DS, Nintendo essentially launching the first salvo, the first 3D console. And we'll talk about what can be done to bring more gamers into the fold. That'll be on our second half of this episode of Downloadable Content. We will be back.
1, 2, 3, 4. I want a cup that overflows with love. ocean full of love. Although I know the holes will still remain. And the Swiss cheese heart knows only kindness can fill its holes. And love could dry my tears as pain disappears. I need a miracle and not someone's charity. One drop of love from him and my heart's in ecstasy. The heart that is sending me is most likely having me. I need a miracle and not someone's charity now.
Welcome back to this second half of a not quite so three-dimensional downloadable content. We are all still here, still quite, I still think we're quite fleshed. Yes, we are. Okay.
If we could make this podcast 3D, we would.
Are you
Why
sure? I
stop
think
at
we already
3D?
in 3D
You know, let's get some quantum mechanics going. Fourth dimensional, baby.
Or just make with the TARDIS and dispense with every dimension.
Well, we'll create something that can hit all five senses at once in your face.
There we go. Well, I mean, we do have two Rons, so it's a two-pronged Ron attack. So it's
A pincer
pincer
attack of
attack,
Ron, you
watch
might
out.
say. Yeah.
you've been double
Cue the
Roned.
Final Fantasy VI music.
Goody. All right, so we're going to continue our discussion on 3D gaming, the next trend in the industry.
Future.
Oh yes, in shiny gold, go faster stripes. So now we're going to talk about what some of the major players are doing with this advent of 3D. We'll talk about what the major companies, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, are doing in 3D games. We'll start with Sony. With this new technology, Sony seems to be going pretty much, gung-ho on the 3D movement. They're pinning a lot of their hopes on it. That's what they want to do. And of the three major consoles, Sony seems to have the largest pool of currently available 3D games. The other two, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, are very, very small, not counting the 3DS yet.
Or for Nintendo, non-existent if you don't count the 3DS.
Yes, that's very true. I mean, even the pool of games with 3D support for the PS3 is pretty small.
And they don't really have a breakout game.
No, I mean, I'm looking at the currently the available list. Games like Call of Duty Black Ops. Well, Gran Turismo 5 I didn't know had 3D support. Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting.
Do we still care about Gran Turismo 5?
Depends who you talk to.
As we mentioned, Killzone.
One thing that I'll say that I actually think that I like that Sony's doing, and I love that Nintendo did, is Nintendo on their 3DS has the little lever on the side that you can adjust how 3D you'd like the game or turn 3D off entirely.
Yes, and you're also jumping the gun.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
We're going to devote an entire section of minutes on the 3DS.
Well, I was actually going to be saying I'm glad that Sony's doing the same thing for its console in that you can turn 3D off in the options.
Yes, there are some games in which you do have that ability.
That's good.
Because if you don't, that's retarded.
Yes.
Well, I remember the first time I laid my hands on a 3DS, my eyes crossed, and I got immediate get a headache. And I'm like, it's not going to happen for me.
Yeah, some of the available games on the PS3, for example, with 3D support, this boggles my mind. Tetris from the PlayStation Network.
Wait, what? Because you want to see lines disappear in 3D.
Why not? I think that was their reason.
Since you're dealing with blocks, just maybe they can come at you instead of going down. I don't know.
Even apparently the new Mortal Kombat game has 3D support, but
That I'm not surprised about at all.
Although since I'm not supporting an HD TV, I can't see Katana's breasts in full, glorious 3D. So,
And then the inevitable blood splatter afterwards.
yes. But you're right, there is really no standout title. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the upcoming titles that's going to have 3D support. Resistance 3, Uncharted 3.
It's like we said, they need that one blowout title to get people to spend the money. They have to.
And I don't know if Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell trilogy is going to provide it. It's
Well,
Tetris
the
did
game
nothing.
does have a following.
A small one.
yes. But is the 360 3D capable?
Yes.
Good question. I think they are.
I think they did introduce a software update that did make it possible for them to handle 3D graphics. Where they actually have any games that do it or not, I don't know.
I think they have. I'm looking it up right now, but I'm pretty sure that they have some 360 games that are 3D capable, just not many.
Yeah, and of course, obviously the Wii has no support. I mean, the Wii can't even support 1080p. So
Yes, there is I have a list right here of 363 games.
all right. Run 'em.
Which most of them are the ones you listed off that are just on PS3.
Ah, okay.
But a couple ones that are not, or that you didn't list, Avatar the game, Crisis 2, Dynasty Warrior 7, the new Green Lantern game for some ungodly reason, and Madden NFL. Because that's what you need.
Gag.
Oh, you mean Madden NFL roster update?
Yeah, hey, if they added 3D in it, that's a legitimate change for the first time in 8 years.
Suppose.
Yes, because we need to hear John Madden's voice in crystal clear 3D.
Hey, it's better than listening to some of the commentary in actual NFL games.
But as we said, it hasn't really caught on yet in the current generation of consoles. Sony is really is trying desperately to spearhead the movement. It's
Ooh, actually, one second. Here's a game that might be able to do it.
oh
Batman Arkham City is going to be released in 3D.
Potentially, I'm not sure. Batman's a big name. I'm not sure if it's a big enough name, though.
Well, I don't think it was before Arkham Asylum, before the last game, but the last game took off so big, I have a feeling this is going to be a very big drop.
Oh yeah, this
And
is
Sonic Generations.
I don't know. Sega is still trying to work its way back with the Blue Hedgehog. I don't think they really should get too crazy yet. Anytime they try to do anything crazy and with reinventing Sonic, it ends up falling flat on their face. They are making a turnaround.
And
yeah,
one last
Sonic
one for you,
Colors
Brian.
was good.
One last one for you, Brian. Silent Hill Downpour.
Yes, that is a game I'm looking forward to. Sans 3D.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Sonic is definitely making a comeback, and that is awesome.
And the last major Silent Hill game, Shattered Memories, was just a sore disappointment.
Poor excuse for a game.
Let's run away from all bad things. No, I want to be able to shoot him. Nope.
But these are actually some. I mean, like I said, I think the Batman Arkham City is going to be a very big game when it comes out. A new Silent Hill is always an interesting thing, And, you know, the fact that even Sega is getting behind it with Sonic, these are actually, even if they're not big enough names to make people switch, though I think the Batman might be, at least there's some quality 3D games coming out.
I'm a bit curious if with as time goes on, I wonder if Mass Effect 3 will be having 3D support, because that would make sense for me why they pushed it back from the original fourth quarter release date from this year to the March for next year.
I have to look it up again, but I'm pretty sure a lot of that has to do with they're trying to implement Kinect and PlayStation Move support.
Yeah, that's why I thought that's what the reason was too, but...
I mean, hell,
Okay.
even Apple is getting in on the fun with their iPads and iPhones now being developed with 3D content.
I just read the most retarded thing I've ever seen.
Uh-oh.
There's a lot of retarded things on the internet.
For Madden NFL, the one that's 3D, it's unlockable once you have to unlock it by playing the game to be able to get 3D support.
What?
Wah, wah, wah!
That's pretty dumb.
That's like, you know,
that's
very anticlimactic way to promote 3D.
Yeah, wow, it sounds... It sounds like... Wow, that makes me think they're a little sheepish about putting out the...
Wow, that's retarded. Okay, continue.
If you play my game, you'll get a feature that'll let you play my game in 3D!
Boom!
Because,
You know,
because that'll make a whole lot of sense! Boom! Like Red 4!
pardon me while I die. Oh, if Nick, you were only a bit fatter and your voice a bit deeper, that would be even better. But
Yeah. Someone give me some testosterone shots. We can fix at least the voice part. As far as the hefty part, pass. I'm having enough chest troubles as is.
Anyway, like I said, Apple is even jumping into the fray here. Because apparently iPads, there's apparently some functionality on the iPad that you can actually view 3D movies glasses free. But, I don't own, an iMaxi, so I don't know too much about it. So, with
Did you just seriously call that iMaxi?
Yes. Although, now that Apple is trying to worm its way into handheld gaming, how long do you think before they jump into the home console market?
Oh, I think
Apple
that's
needs
inevitable.
a serious plan first. Trying to follow through gaming on their Macintosh computer is very difficult.
I don't think gaming has ever been a huge priority for them.
Yeah, I don't think they've considered it just because they've always sailed to the tune of their own boat, and they don't really give a damn
Boats
about
can
what
sing.
anyone else does. So,
I mean, they've finally gotten gaming support behind their iPhone with how many people have been using it. But even so, even at that point, it's the only reason they've let people get behind it. The only reason why they've done it is because it's all to exactly their specifications. They're introducing gaming on phones to a wide extent, and they can kind of set the standards.
they're also introducing it on their terms. By their terms, I mean they're going to get at least a cut of it, the money.
That's exactly right, and that's kind of what I was getting at, but I wasn't using the right words.
As I say, I do stuff on the I do some programming on the side, and I look at the graphic specifications in a Macintosh, and I'm appalled. They're far behind Windows.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's because they haven't needed it. I mean, necessity is what creates our inventions, and you want to know what? PC gaming, despite the fact that it may be the redheaded stepchild of console gaming to a lot of people, the gaming is a large portion of why graphics cards and computers have progressed so far. And until a lot of games are coming out and it becomes an industry for Macintosh instead of an afterthought the way it is now, you're not going to see the graphic capabilities go up to where a regular PC is.
They put good graphics chips in their Macintosh computers, but the actual ability to program them is not there.
Mm-hmm.
just found out earlier today, new Mac OS X Lion does not support the entirety of OpenGL 3. Kronos Group is already promoting OpenGL 4, which is available on Windows, but you still have to use OpenGL 2.1 on the Macintosh.
Well, the only reason why they even have decent graphic cards on a Macs is because a lot of people use Macs for graphic design.
Yeah.
They're
Look at
still
the-
running software that can't even do all the latest tricks. It's just like it's so antithetical to the whole culture.
Yeah, the reason why people are so ingrained in the graphics industry and, for example, CGI movies and stuff like that, and why you see a lot of them with the Apple PCs and Apple Macs, is because the the Macs were super cheap for them to get it, because they could get like a bundle of like 100 of them for a lot cheaper than they could get a bundle of 100 for PCs.
It's the same reason why at least when I was a kid, because I know a couple of you are older than I am, you'd see them in schools all the time, Apples, because they would make deals to send them out very cheap and, get a monopoly on the schools and, make money as they upgrade and give them more stuff.
They still do that. That's what it is in most schools nowadays. Is if you look at computer lab, if the school has any sort of actual funding and isn't a community college, it's probably going to have Macintosh computers.
I don't know, because I haven't looked at stuff recently, but I know at least the school district where I live I considered an upgraded to Windows.
Yep.
Well,
And that's my area too.
I
Hardly anything uses a Macintosh lab anymore. There's only one area in the entire, at least in my little area, that even has a Mac lab, and that's the community college.
Regardless, it just seems. I just say that we don't want to spend too much time on the Mac, but if you want to talk about Apple and games, they have to do. They need a new game plan.
all right.
Yeah.
And what they've got now, they're not anywhere near in the position to take on games seriously.
So, and be that as it may, well, we're going to shift back here. I didn't expect
To the actual topic.
I didn't actually expect that. My one question of, will Apple get into the gaming industry, be a nice tangential discussion. That was nice.
Oh, okay.
That was nice.
Onward!
That was nice. Onward. All right. So, with all this discussion about 3D gaming, its criticisms, etc., Nintendo launched the opening volley. Not too long ago, earlier this year, they put out the Nintendo 3DS, which is the first 3D native, really, console, albeit for a handheld.
Who's got theirs?
I do.
I'm gonna wait. Honestly, my first experience with the 3DS was very negative. So
I am holding.
I'm gonna wait for the eventual re-release of the 3DS.
I'm waiting for them to improve the battery life on the 3DS before I even consider getting it. I mean, the battery life on a 3DS is Game Gear bad. It's
yeah, that's not
PSP
acceptable.
bad.
It's
I've heard that so many places. I don't get that much worse battery life than I do with my DS.
Do you have the 3D turned up all the way? Do you have the
I have 3D turned off.
Yeah, that's why, because 3D eats up about 25% of the battery by itself.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but here's the thing. Any of the game, like I said, I mean, I can't see it, but that means that the battery life is pretty close to the same as is for the DS when you don't factor in the 3D, which means they're going to need a much bigger battery than what either of them carry just to make up for the 3D.
they can also improve on the chip to draw less power. That's doing the 3D calculations.
That's a good point.
I get an average of about 4 to 5 hours off my 3DS, and
whereas a regular DS can take.
I can get easily double that.
Yeah.
Regular
Most DSs
DS.
I've seen average between 8 and 10 hours. If you're really stringy with your power and you really turn it down to be a power saving machine, I think a DS get as long as 12 hours.
I mean, my DS, I usually get about 9 hours of use out of my DS, and I usually get about 8 hours of use out of my 3DS. And that's, as I said, with 3D turned off, that at least gives you a baseline so we can see how badly the 3D is affecting it.
So, anyway, the 3DS is the first 3D native system Nintendo has launched. Its opening move, and there was a lot of hype surrounding it. But apparently it's stumbled a little bit out of the gate.
It did. Really, a really poor launch lineup, which is kind of surprising.
Well,
But,
other than Pilot Wings.
well, to those who actually like Pilot Wings, I wasn't really sold on it, but...
It was one of my favorite games from the Super Nintendo. I have many fond memories, and the new one I've heard is supposed to be... I've played it, but I don't own it yet, but it looks very good.
Now, obviously I haven't played the 3DS, so I do not know what the system's capable of. Obviously you can play the system. There's no glasses required. I mean, I know that one of the major titles that was anticipated title for the 3DS was Ocarina of Time. I really wish it just wasn't a graphical remake.
That offends you, doesn't it?
It really, really does. God, no changes to the story at all. It's just shiny.
Having fun there!
I think, from what we were saying earlier about ports, I think ports from a console to a handheld is much less of an issue because, at least then it's two different formats and, you might want to walk around with some of your favorite games. I think that's one of the major things with Ocarina because it's never been on a handheld before.
Nick, you have the 3DS, correct?
Yes, I do.
Talk about it.
3DS, I really can't contribute too much because there's really not a whole lot, game-wise that came out for it. But, it offers an extra analog stick, which is nice for a little more precision control. I like the graphical capability, the graphics. I got Rayman 3D for it, and I must be one of the few who really isn't affected by the 3D in it.
Because
once I got used to it,
I recall it came with a warning.
it does, and
it does.
And I admit after for me, an hour to 2 hours, I can't watch it anymore. But having the option to turn it off at will is nice.
Or not even just turn it off. Lower the effect.
Yeah,
lowering the effect can, because a lot of people, it all depends on how much 3D you can tolerate.
Right. You said it comes with a slider to adjust.
Yep. You can adjust it from full to completely nothing, and the slider setting has at least 30. As you're just sliding down, it just changes.
So Nick, how does the 3D graphics look? Are they, visually stunning? Do we have pop-out graphics or?
Yeah, there is an additional little bit of flair, a little extra pop that I personally enjoy it just from an eye candy sense. But from a gameplay sense, it's not that much different from a regular DS. And I don't think we're really going to see too much in the way of actual, maybe, game control until... I would say the first example, from what I've heard so far, is the new Kid Icarus.
Oh, that's going to make me sad.
Why? Kid Icarus is awesome.
So a new Kid Icarus game?
No. I love Kid Icarus. I'm looking forward to the new Kid Icarus game, and if it makes 3D part of the actual gameplay, I'm not going to be able to play it. It's going to make me very sad.
You misunderstand me. I meant the actual using the analog and the touch screen, using all the features. No, the 3D is just an added boost.
Okay.
Again, for right now, it's just eye candy. And it depends. And really, for people who are thinking about the 3DS, it comes down to this: are graphics really that important to you? Number two, this now has a virtual console feature online, much like the Wii does.
You stole that.
Your favorite Game Boy games can now be played on it. For example, Unbeknownst to Brian, I'm playing Link's Awakening right now.
That's where the noise is coming from. But no, that's what I was going to bring up. That's why I bought this. I bought it for the Virtual Console on the 3DS, and I bought it for a couple of the games that have been announced. Kid Icarus is one of the major ones right at the top, as is a new Boy and His Blob, which I love to death.
Wait, there's a new Boy and Blob?
Boy and His Blob has been announced.
Whee!
For the 3DS.
And
we don't have a release date yet,
he
though.
He just moistened himself.
I've loved that game since regular Nintendo, and I got the one for the Wii, and I can't wait for this one. Blaze Blue also has one coming out.
That's going to be the reason why I end up getting the 3DS. It was the same reason why I got the Wii. It was for Virtual Console.
Yeah, I mean it's
because my Game Boy cartridges, my Super Mario Land and Super Mario Land 2 6 golden coins are effectively dead.
I don't think I don't think many people are gonna be getting the 3DS for the 3D graphics. I have a feeling that that people are going to be getting it either for some of the games that they're pushing, because they're really pushing some stuff on the 3DS that's going to be coming out that's very good, or for the Virtual Console. I think those are bigger sellers, to be honest, in the gaming community.
Especially
than the
for
3D.
people our age, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who miss games like the original Kirby's Dream Land or
and a new Kingdom Hearts on it too as well.
Oh great, another hold my hand game.
And Luigi's Mansion 2.
Yes.
Can't wait for that.
That'll be good.
I still maintain that Luigi should have his vacuum replaced and actually be given a proton pack, but
I was going to say, licensing particle accelerators is expensive, Brian.
Well, you can use it to vaporize Mario, but
do you think they'll release the Metroid 2 for the Virtual Console?
I would hope, but who knows?
But, system and Virtual Console aside, do you think that the 3DS is going to cause more people to embrace 3D as the next wave in gaming? How so?
I think that it gets... I think a lot of people are going to get into the 3DS for reasons completely unrelated to the 3D, but once it becomes the standard to them, once they're used to playing games in 3D, and they're used to seeing things in 3D, they're going to start asking, well, why isn't my console 3D? Why aren't the games on that 3D? Once it becomes the standard on the handheld market, they're going to start looking for it in their household.
Alrighty.
And Nintendo's got the games to pull it off as well. You think about just the brief lineup we've touched base on in the for what's coming out in the relatively near future. We got Kingdom Hearts, we got Kid Icarus, we have a Mario game coming out. I believe there's a Kirby game, though I think that might be also on the DS as well. So I'm not 100% certain.
You got Paper Mario coming out.
Paper Mario, another favorite of mine.
Metal Gear Solid 3 also gets a 3D upgrade for the 3DS.
Another re-imaging, as you would call it.
And the first time we see Smash Brothers on a handheld.
That's not going to be for like another 6 years.
Yeah, another 5-6 years.
They have it announced.
Yeah, that's it. They have it announced. I imagine the face on the guy who he named that was going to be doing it. It's like, wait, you're going to have me make a Super Smash Bros. Game, and it's going to be instantly compatible between the 3DS and the Wii U, and it's going to be
Well,
We're not going to get into more jokes on that, are we?
I was kind of under the assumption that it was going. I didn't read anything up on it yet. I just heard it was announced. I kind of assumed it was a separate Super Smash Bros. Game. It wasn't
this Super Smash Bros. Game is going to be interchangeable or playable on 3DS and Wii U, and you can play against someone who has a 3DS or against someone who has a Wii U.
Awesome! I'll put that right next to Duke Nukem Forever. 10 years ago.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh dear. Anyway, Anywho, but do you honestly see the 3DS as a system that's going to last for a while, and you think it's going to be the standard bearer for the systems to come after it?
Well,
We have stereoscopic 3D now with the.
It's at least going to hold the standard for at least at least for the next couple of years, because not only is Nintendo pretty much going to make all their future games 3DS only, at least that was according to the last report I saw, but they're also going to team up with Netflix, do a lot of 3D movies right from your DS. And I think that's going to be important especially for people on the go who want to sit, watch a movie while on a bus or something. I think it at least have some staying power. Is it gonna Is it gonna help have 3D stay forever and ever? That remains to be seen. I really could see this going one way or the other.
All right, fair enough. So now the last question I will pose to the panel as we start to wind down is, what can be done to bring more gamers into the 3D fold?
Improve the technology so my eyes don't cross as soon as I look at it.
Free LASIK surgery.
Best money I ever spent.
So and you said it yourself, Peter. You tried the 3DS and you went all cross-eyed.
I couldn't see. I can't stand a damn thing. I was taking artificial intelligence in college, and one of the class presentations. One of the other students brought in a 3DS to demonstrate how it can recognize certain images and do some tricks with them. And as soon as I looked at the screen, my eyes crossed. I got a headache. I can't look at this thing. So I just handed it to the next student. Like, here you go. So I'm like, if this is what my games are going to look like, I can't play games like that.
Yeah, to make a more serious answer for me, you need to make it affordable for the masses to play. You need to have some really good games on it too. You need to figure out a way to incorporate the 3D into the game itself, like you were describing earlier, like having a Resident Evil have an item that's important to the quest pop out at you in 3D. And you also need to, if you're going to have it being like a console, the technology needs to evolve to the point where you can actually have 3D on a TV without glasses and still have a wide range of viewing options on that TV.
All right. Nick?
I think it's really just going to come down to the quality of the games that are released in 3D. As long as game companies can, hand out quality titles and make it even better in 3D than it is not in 3D, then this thing's going to take off. But if not, then we're going to head back to the way things were. Just look at the Virtual Boy. It just, it was a good attempt, but it ended in vain. And now, years later, we're going to try again. We'll see if it sticks.
Alrighty, Ronnie.
I think that with the 3DS, the 3D is basically going to become the de facto standard for handheld. And I don't think, honestly, I'm making this as a prediction. I don't think 3D is going to be going away in the handheld market for as long as I can think at this point. There's no reason for them not to do it. For the actual console market, I don't think the technology is there yet for a mass exodus Switch. It's just not. They need, whether it's 6 months from now or 5 years from now, when they find the technology that lets you do it without glasses and with a wide viewing angle, then we are going to see them pushing it like they're going to shove it down our throats. But until that technology is where it needs to be, I don't think that 3D is ever going to catch on in the actual home market. As I said, I think that it's already going to be the standard in any of the upcoming consoles for the handheld market.
For me personally, something that could bring me into the fold of 3D gaming. The one thing is cost. Right now it still remains largely prohibitively expensive, and again, the glasses. I cannot put 3D glasses on over my regular glasses. It just won't work. And even you could think about it from a health aspect. I mean, Ronnie, you can't see 3D.
Nope.
So you're going to be alienated should games be made solely in 3D.
Well, if the
I don't
games
think
are
that'll
made,
I don't think that'll happen.
if they're made solely in 3D, it really doesn't affect me. And this is the worst part, because it's one of the only ways it's going to catch on. But if it does, it's going to screw so many people up. Is they have to make it a core gameplay mechanic for it to get over, for people to take it seriously. It needs to be a part where 3D images help you find things. Important things are 3D. Or different parts of the gameplay where 3D actually matters to play the game. But then people like me are going to be screwed.
See, this is a challenge to the programmers too, where if that does happen, they need to be aware of it, and they need to introduce some sort of item or some sort of option in the game that says, okay, if you just simply can't straight up see 3D, we're going to give you an item or something that highlights these things in 2D for you.
Kind of like
Instead
with
of having
Peggle with colorblind mode?
Yes. And that would be great, as long as they take that into account. And there'll probably be a good 5% of games that take that into account. And the rest of the 95% of games made by assholes who put out crap are not going to have anything like that.
EA. No.
Ouch.
Burn.
Because think I don't know the percentage off the top of my head. Maybe one of you guys do. Do you know what the percentage of colorblind people is?
No
My
idea.
father's colorblind.
Partial or full?
Either.
I think partial is about 15%. I want to say full color blindness is about 2%.
How many games have you guys seen, especially puzzle games that are based around colors, and how many times have you seen a colorblind mode in them?
The only game I know that has a colorblind mode is Peggle.
So, when you have that, that's 15%. That's more than the people who can't see 3D. And if they aren't getting a mode, and they're a much more vocal community than people who can't see 3D, we don't even have a community. There is a community of colorblind people who speak out against this stuff.
Yeah.
Do you really expect them to get behind an option for people who can't see 3D?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just being negative.
No, it is an important thing that the gaming community really doesn't address, is not just colorblind people, but the handicap community in general, is how can the developers and the consoles address so that games are widely playable to everyone. I mean, we all heard stories about how games help people recover in hospitals after major surgeries, but what about the people who have a permanent illness or permanent handicap, like if you're in a wheelchair or you lose functionality in one arm or something like that? How are they going to be able to continue playing a game?
You have a point.
There you go. There you go.
That might be another podcast sometime.
It could be. It could be. I'm always open to suggestions. And you can give us even more suggestions by going to Downloadable Content's Facebook or Twitter at facebook.com/downloadablecontent or DL Content over at Twitter. We'd love to hear your thoughts, rants, raves, compliments, whatever. Feed us. We love cookies. So, as we put this thing to bed, I would like to thank Peter, Ronnie, Ron, and Nick for their thoughts on this issue of 3D gaming. And we shall see you next time on Downloadable Content. Have a good one, everybody!